Welcome back to the Player's Edge, everybody. Today, Tom, before the show started, was telling me how I'm going to mess up the opening. I got it clean, Tom. And it's cool.
Yay!
My shoulder hurts. Ow. Today, you can see we have our guest today is JJ Hysell. JJ, how are you tonight?
I am great, guys. I want to thank you so much for inviting me tonight. This is such a great time of year to be a guest on the podcast and talking about these great races.
Yeah, some phenomenal races this weekend. We're going to get to three of the biggest races on the Monmouth card. The United Nations, I forget the other one, the Haskell Stakes. Sometimes when you get a little old, maybe you wear your hat a little bit too tight. Been a long day. Terry's got a chance to change. For those of you who watched the earlier show, I'm still wearing the same thing. Put a hat on to mask the hat head. But in any case, we're back again for the Haskell with JJ. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you head over to the website. Check out, there was a good question and answer with JJ. One of the questions I had a follow-up is I asked you one of the things that you think has been difficult for the sport since you've been covering it as a horse racing writer. You said the separation between the gambler and horse racing. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I understand horse racing's desire to draw in younger fans. I understand the appeal of night racing. I understand the appeal of big crowds. There's a lot of revenue that's brought in from events that are being promoted at tracks. However, I don't think that moving away from gamblers is a good idea for racing. And I think that some gamblers and people who do focus on handicapping and wagering do feel like they're being left out with some of the latest promotions being geared more toward events and what's happening at the track, live bands and so forth. We need to continue on with more efforts with wagering, new types of wagers, promoting wagers, and promoting gambling. Wagering is what keeps this sport afloat.
Well, I had an idea. If anybody's listening from any of the tracks, if you look at football games or basketball games or baseball games or any other sport, you have in-game betting. Now, I'm not saying you should be able to in-game horse racing bet because that would be too difficult. The races are over too fast. But one of the things you could do is you could have wagering for the first horse to hit the quarter pole, first horse to hit. So you can have a quarter pole trifecta. You can have the half mile trifecta, maybe the 6 furlong trifecta, depending on how long the race is. Maybe we can actually have a Tom race. Which horse is going to come in last? Speaking of Tom has changed his moniker today to 40-1. So I guess he's downgraded himself from the 53-1 that he was last couple of weeks.
Had a nice 40-1 winner at Ayr. And I got the tip listening to the trainer talk about the horse during an interview about a horse that he won with earlier. And I'm like, and I looked and I said, yep, that horse got a great chance. So I put a little money on it and I was very happy.
Fantastic. And then, of course, you have Terry Hollywood Hay, who was with me a little earlier in the day. We both unfortunately missed out on our pick 4 picks, but we'll see if we can get our Haskell picks tonight. Terry, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we missed out on that, but my pick of the day won, so I was happy about that. Mm-hmm. My other 2 horses, though, were scratched in that race. And I did have a question for JJ, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
I know you interview probably a lot of jockeys and trainers for articles and such. I was wondering who your favorite jockey was to interview and trainer.
Oh gosh. Well, jockey. There's so many that are good. I would say Julian Leparoux and Mike Smith are 2 of the best to interview because they, after a race, even right immediately after a race, and I've worked for notes teams for some of the tracks, and you have to run up immediately following the race and get their reaction. And they are always honest and upfront about what happened. And they will explain to you what happened in a race, and they will go through it with you. They're great. As far as trainers, Mark Cassey has always been good about telling you what his intentions are with a horse. He's always been upfront about that. And I enjoy interviewing Todd Pletcher a lot too, because if you can pull things out of Todd Pletcher, it's very interesting talking to him because you can get some really good information about his horses.
That sounds great.
We'll have to see if we can get Todd Pletcher on so we can pull some interesting things out of him. Maybe you can arrange a meeting, if you will. It would be great to have Todd Pletcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean's typically in charge of getting people on. So, Sean, what are you doing? Why haven't we seen Todd Pletcher so we can get some interesting information out of it?
You know what? He is he's hard to reach. He is like JJ said, you got to pull it out of him, and I don't think he's one that really likes to go on these kind of things. It may happen one day. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and he said all the trainers he got on, and he said Pletcher was on his bucket list that he has yet to reach him. It was a hard thing to do. So it may happen one day, though. JJ, my question is, and this will kind of lead into the night, what have you found, and what are your thoughts on the no whip and the no Lasix? How much does that change your handicapping? Because we're still all trying to learn it. It's totally different.
I think it's greatly affected handicapping, and the whip rule even goes into a safety issue. I'm sure, as you've seen and all the fans have seen, many of the jockeys, including Johnny V, one of the greatest jockeys right now in our sport, has come out and said that he's concerned about safety issues with this rule. I personally, and no breaking news, I've never been a jockey, but I did ride saddlebreds when I was younger, and I cannot fathom being without a riding crop, and that was going 5 miles an hour in a circle at a county fair. To me, it would be very scary to ride without that assistance. But so far, it seems to have gone better than hoped. I mean, we haven't had anything major. There have been a few situations where I think some instances in races where, do you think the outcome could have been different? Maybe. I thought it was interesting that Florent Giroux brought up after Mandaloun's Pegasus that as you know, Mandaloun got toward the end there, that he lost a little focus without the encouragement of the whip. He did bring that up after the race. So I do think as a handicapper, this is a very big dilemma because you're going into the race knowing that this could have an effect on a race. The Lasix rule is the same thing. This is different. Now you've got different jurisdictions, different rules. Everywhere you go, you have to look and see, is Lasix allowed in this race, in this jurisdiction, and how is a horse going to perform going on and off of the drug? So it's definitely made it much, much harder for gamblers.
I have to agree with you. I've only been on a horse once in my life. Well, maybe twice. I don't remember the first time. But the second time I was out in Cincinnati with my family. My son was on a soccer trip, and we went to like this barn or shelter or whatever. It was a big place. The guy had the horses inside, and they were walking around in circles, and everybody was getting like their first horse racing lesson or first horse riding lesson. And I think he put me on like the crabby old man horse in the group. And because he was kind of a smart Alec, the guy who ran the place, and he pinpointed me, I guess, as the one to try to make fun of. So he stuck me on this old man horse that didn't do anything I told it to do. He said, pull the reins, stick your feet in it. I pull the reins and stick my feet in it. He'd go faster. He's not supposed to do that. He decides, he said, come over here and walk up on this platform and get your horse to stop. 4-year-olds are getting their horse to go up on there and stop. My horse, he don't want to stop. Instead, he wants to go outside, jump over the fence into the lake, or chase some other horse up on the hill. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm getting off this thing before I end up in the lake. But, so I can't imagine what it's like to be on one of those things going 40 miles an hour. But obviously they're very well trained, like my dog.
What I find interesting too is we have a lot of jockeys that this is new to too. So that's why I think a lot of them don't even have the whip, because to me instincts are going to kick in, and if you have the whip in your hand, you're going to use it and forget that you're at Monmouth and you can't. So that's another interesting thing that, if I was them, I wouldn't carry it because, like I said, instincts would kick in and I would use it because that's what you're used to.
Right. Well, Mike Smith did bring that up, that when he was on our show, that, he was not a big fan of the rules because they don't really get any input from the jockeys and so forth. And, he had an incident over in, I think, was it Saudi Arabia, where he hit the horse one or too many times and got fined a lot of money. And he felt like, it was probably, like you said, Sean, just instinct, I guess, if you will. But he felt like he did it justifiably and shouldn't have been penalized and so forth. But I could see as a jockey, I'm with you. I wouldn't have it. I'd probably end up over the fence in the river with the horse for sure. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about Monmouth Park. We're going to do our best to handicap at a track where there are no whips. The Lasix rules are in effect. And we did Monmouth for a live contest maybe a month ago, Sean, And I tell you, I had one of the most difficult time trying to pick. In one race, the speed horse wins. In the next race, the closer wins. And then they don't run in straight paths. The races don't look as clean. There's some wiggle in their path to the finish line. So it's definitely a challenge. So we're going to try to live up to that challenge. And we'll start with race number 10. That is the Molly Pitcher Stakes. It's a grade 3, a mile and a 16th on the track. You know, I look back at every race so far this year because I tossed out all the previous years because of the horse racing rules. And I found that something like 16 out of the 26 winners at the distance were either first or second at the quarter pole. So it does look to me like there is a speed bias there for sure. So since it's like golf, JJ, you're the guest, so you have honors. Why don't you start us off with your thinking?
Yeah, that's an excellent point that you brought up as well, because I think there may be a lot more speed in this race signed on than what it looks like on paper, because a lot of these contenders do prefer to be forwardly placed, and for various reasons, they haven't been in some of their most recent races. So I think we could see a few change in pace tactics in this race. We have a lot of intriguing fillies and mares that are coming out against some top competition that they faced. And there's also a few like Thankful, Bajan Girl, and Mrs. Danvers who they have new jockeys aboard. So I think we could see a different pattern here. I really like the horses that ran in the Ruffian. I looked at those horses, and on my top pick, I landed on Water White at 5-1. She's coming out of a very competitive Ogden Phipps, and yeah, she was last in that 5-horse race, but she pressed the pace with the likes of Latriska and She Dares the Devil, and it was just too much for her. I think she'll appreciate the return to this level. The looming question is, can she turn the tables on Vault, who also looks good here at 7-2. Vault, she also met up with Latriska in the Fleur-de-Lis, but if you take away that race, she's had some really strong performances this season. And she doesn't really need a fast pace up front. She can go either way. So there's plenty of speed signed on here, though. So I think she'll be okay there. I think one to consider for exotics is the number 1, Our Super Freak. I think she has a chance to improve here. She also came out of that Ruffian. At one point in that race, she was 7 wide. And I think that race just does not show her quality. I think she's great for exotics. And so is Bajan Girl, who gets Florent Giroux aboard for the first time. And she also comes in off a very strong bullet work here at Monmouth. So in my betting, I have 7 and 3 on top, and for exotics, the 1 and the 6.
7, 3, 1, 6. Now, Terry, you're typically the one that agrees with the guests the most. So you have a 7, 3, the 1 and the 6. Well, I think he does it on purpose. I think he waits to hear what the guest has to say and then piggybacks to be to be the nice guy, so to speak.
Well, I'd have to be able to look in the future to be able to do that, because I actually submit my picks to you earlier. But yeah, I agree with her in most of the horses. I actually had a really hard time with this race handicapping, and I came up with my first pick as the number 1, Our Super Freak. He's coming from the rail post, and that's running at a 27% clip there. She has the highest speed rater figure to today's distance, and her dirt speed is among today's starters is one of the best. She has a really sharp furlong workout, July 10th. Then I like number 3, Vault. Likes the distance, finishing the money 90% of the time, winning 55% of those entries. She has a great trainer-jockey combination of Brad Cox and Tyler Glaffleone. Then I like number 5, Bank Sting. Has won 4 races in a row. She has the highest last race speed rating in the race. And she can run on top, or she can come from behind, which is an angle I really like. And then Mrs. Danvers, the number 2, has early speed style, which can only help her chances here. She should improve at this shorter distance. And then I like number 7, the Water White. Has been competing in grade 1s and 2 races, and has ran a good second in a grade 2 contest, the Ruffian Stakes, as JJ was referring to, receiving a 95 speed rating.
Did you pick all the horses there, Terry?
I picked at least 5 of them.
That makes it pretty easy. Tom, you usually you're good for a long shot here. Anything that you see here at a price that you might put on top?
I did, actually. I think, well, we'll see.
All right.
Number 9, Graceful Princess.
Wow.
I tossed her last race. She doesn't like the off going. It was a reduced field. Everybody, a lot of them scratched out of it at Delaware. Her race, she tried to establish position early, wasn't able to get to the near the front, and then the jockey dropped her in on the rail. The rail is not the place to be on that day. Then she ended up behind the tiring front runner, who was a 50-1 shot, and then she just didn't do much. She lost by a neck in a grade 3 at Aqueduct. She wants a fast track. Her slop performances have been awful. 3 runs, nothing. I think she's better suited for here. Yeah, she's an optional claimer, allowance winner twice, but this is a better spot for her. This is something where I think she can handle it. I did take number 6, Bajan Girl, speed. Again, she was in the same race with Graceful Princess. She didn't make the lead. She tried to, but she didn't make it. And she got outgunned by a long shot. She battled for part of the race, then backed off. The rail was dead. She was on there. Yeah, but she's run well in a grade 3, and everybody's talking about Florent Giroux and blah, blah, blah. Brad Cox is an entry in this race, but Florent Giroux picked this horse to ride versus Cox's horse. And he's the first call generally on Cox's horses. So that makes me think that Bajan Girl's got a nice chance in here. Mrs. Danvers, I think she's good for a piece of the race. She's a winner of a grade 3, but anytime in November, December, January in Aqueduct, I like those horses to finish the money, but not necessarily to win.
Not to bring the money home. Huh? All right. Sean, how are you going to bring money home in this race?
So I struggled with this race. Of course, you start the day off, you look at this race.
Almost say you do in every race.
Yeah. So I was looking, and I was doing some deep research. Vault was always one that I looked at and wanted to use. I looked at his past results. I'd seen in 2019, Tyler Connor ran him once. Julio Hernandez in Penn National, who I've talked to, has run this horse 7 times. So I reached out to both of them. Julio absolutely loves this horse. His exact words was, "She's awesome. I love her." She owns a track record at Penn National, actually going 139.2 for a mile and 70 yards in November of 2019. Both agreed. Julio Hernandez started with it. It's a really nice horse. You have to time your move right with her, though. She has a short move. If you time it wrong, she will hang in the stretch. She does really well at the distance. I'm going with Vault here. I think there's enough speed. Vault will sit right behind. As long as Gaffleone times the ride right, this horse is going to win. Second, I went with Our Super Freak. Just seems to be one of those horses that constantly hangs in the exotic. So not a horse I want to use up top, but constantly want to use in the exotics and trifectas. And then third, I went with number 2, Mrs. Danvers. Can run up front or mid-pack. Been in the exacta 7-11 lifetime races. And this will be the first time Paco Lopez gets on board. And he'll be aggressive. So that should help a horse like this.
Yeah, I have a little bit of different. I got the 3 Vault as my second pick. Definitely likes the distance. 6 wins in 11 races. Maybe the distance is really the key and not so much when they make the move, but I'm not here to second guess what a jockey who rode the horse said to say. But he's got 6 wins in 11 races at the distance, just 1 win in 11 races at any other distance. So maybe he rode the horse more frequently at today's distance. I do like Our Super Freak. Does like to have second place, 4 seconds and 4 starts at the distance. Now she gets the rail, so maybe that could be the difference between finishing second and finishing first. Miss Danvers is my 4th pick. Tends to run well fresh. Had a little bit of time in the barn. But Bank Sting at 10-1, the 5 horse, seems to me to be a price that is more than fair. Last time out, ran the top last race speed figure and is the only horse in the field to score above par for this level last time out. So that's an angle that I like. If Bank Sting can run the same race that it ran last time, I don't see any reason why I can't win, and it's given me the most value at 10-1. Should be close to the front of the pace, which is the way to win at this distance. As I mentioned, 16 of the 26 winners were first or second. I suspect that she'll be either first or second at the quarter pole. So every opportunity to cash in on a 10-to-1 ticket. Our next race is race number 11, which is the United Nations Stake. It's a kind of an odd race, 1 3/8 miles on the turf, and it's a 3-turn race, which is kind of interesting. You don't see many of those. And looking back at the last 10 years, I kind of wanted to get a sense of how this race has played out. And again, I'm throwing out all history because of the whip rules in 2021. But nonetheless, at 1 3/8 miles and 3 turns, you still kind of want to get a sense for how the race might play. And 6 of the last 10 winners were 6th or further back at the quarter-mile marker. So I would not be surprised to see a horse come off the pace here. You're shaking your head, JJ. It looks like you probably agree with me on that. So why don't you tell us which one of your closers is going to come home first?
Well, we know that bodes well for Arklow,
Yep.
who likes to come sometimes from very far back. And that's a hard-knocking warrior, Arklow. I think he's the deserving favorite. They put blinkers on when he lost this race last year, and they said that really woke him up here. I think he's the deserved favorite. That win in the Louisville Stakes, which I actually was able to see, was phenomenal. And he was 5 wide at one point. So I think you just have to include Arklow. I don't see many knocks against him. Chad Brown, the king of the turf marathons, he has several in here. He said that Tribavon at 3-to-1 that he has been much improved since he was gelded for this 2021 campaign, and he was a good second to the monster domestic spending. So it's hard to keep him off as well when you look at who he's run against. Flavian will probably have him forwardly placed. The question is the distance. How long can he hold on in a race full of so many good closers? And as you pointed out, closers doing very well in this race and at this distance. So I just have him in exotics only. I actually like the longest odd Chad Brown runner in the race, which is Serve the King. With Paco aboard, second off the layoff is a really good angle for Chad. And also think the son of Kingman, I think he will really relish the distance. He just has to answer the class question, but I think that it's within the realm of possibility for him. I think for exotics, I think Fantasioso is very interesting at a price for Ignacio Correas. He's adding blinkers, which is a 15% angle for Ignacio. I think he's Miguel Mena's running really well right now. He won the Robert Dick Memorial with Delica. So I just had him underneath. But it's Arklow is looking really good in this race. It's hard to go against him. On top, I went 1-3 and 8 for exotics, 3-1-8 and then 10-5 for exotics.
3-1-8 and 10-5 for exotics. Okay, Tom. This race, being that you have the international grass love, seems like a race to me that fits you perfectly. Tell us where you're going.
It's a little different with 3 turns versus 1 turn and you're going up and down a hill. But I did take number 10, Tribavon. I liked his last race. He wasn't going to beat domestic spending when he closed the 16th pole, but he had a strong finish. I like the fact that Flavian Pratt's getting on for the first time. I think he can measure the ride and be able to give a really good opportunity for this horse to win. Yeah, we got closers, but I'm still thinking the front runner, and there's not a lot of speed in this race, is really going to have his own way. And the closers will be coming for minor awards. Number 6, Masterpiece, has come from Chile. He's raced in 2 grade 1s.
I think it's number 8.
Well, he's raced 3 races, but 2 grade 1s here in this country, and 1 allowance race. Well, he won the allowance race at Keeneland. He was the 50-cent favorite, and he should be, because they're a much better horse than what there was in that field. So this is an opportunity for him to see if he can step up and race in the grade 1 status. He tried to follow domestic spending in his last race, and that didn't work out too well. But in this field, I don't see domestic spending running here, so no. I like him a lot. Arklow, my problem with him is, he's good at grade 2s and grade 3s, but not grade 1s. He has 1 win. And I don't really see him. He's the favorite, sure, but I wouldn't bet him as the favorite. Hitting the board, I think he's got a good chance, but I don't see him winning.
Sean, do you see Arklow winning?
No, I agree with Tom. I did the numbers in 9 career grade 1 races, has only won once and finished second once. Definitely one to use in the exotics, then to come flying late. But I also don't think there's that much pace. I mean, you got the 10 and you got the Trebavon and number 6 winners back, and maybe the number 2 Epic Bromance, but I don't think Epic Bromance is fast enough. And I also think the 6 and the 10, Pratt may go for the lead, but he might just sit second. They're not going to duel each other. So I actually put the 2 speed horses I saw up front. I went with number 10 Trebavon as the leader, as the winner. Pratt on turf, absolutely amazing. And Chad Brown, the trainer, and then won 2 of the last 3 races. Last race, he's finished second to domestic spending. Number 6 winners back. Probably another one that should be up front. I do like this horse is really sharp and also doesn't need to lead to win. It's another one could sit second and just stalk if he really wanted to. In his career, finished in the exact 6 of 8 races. This is the toughest test yet. He did finish second at Monmouth with no whip over a month ago, so that was no concern. And then I did use Arklow to finish out the trifecta just because this horse will be flying late. I just don't think he gets there.
Just don't think he gets there. Terry, is Arklow going to get there?
Yes, he is. And I just agree with Sean and Tom and agree with JJ. I think Arklow has.
I told you Tom likes to. Terry likes to be with the guests.
We would have it. No, we'd have it no other way, Terry.
No, it couldn't be any other way.
I
knew it was coming.
Well, Arklow, has won 2 races in a row, going for a hat trick, which is an angle I like, and he has the best turf speed among today's starters. He has a good combination of trainer jockey and Brad Cox and Giroux. And then I like number 10, Trebavon. Then has the highest speed rating in the last race, and he likes the turf. He's won 4 out of 13 starts, finishing 69% of the time in the money. And then I like number 6, Winners Back. He's having a good career, finishing in the money 75% of the time, winning 38% of those entries. He has also a hot trainer in the last 14 days of Todd Fletcher. And then I like number 2, Eric Bromance, likes the distance, winning only start at today's distance, and has a very good workout, a sharp workout on July 8th. I think the way the race will go is a lot of the horses will go to the front, including number 2, Eric Bromance, number 6, Winners Back, and number 10, Trebavon. And they'll all try to go all the way, but I think that number 1, Arklow, will be set behind those leaders, up pretty close, and close at the end to win.
For me, this race is kind of interesting because I don't necessarily think the best horse is going to win this race. I think it'll be, because of the 3 turns, the one that gets the best trip. And it just seems to me that Arklow's probably not going to be that far off the front. It's going to get a perfect ground-saving trip on the rail and won 3 of his last 4 starts. So the 7-year-old seems like the old man's got it going on right now, and he's in top form. I do think that Trebavon is the classiest horse in the field, unquestionably. He should run a premium number in his 3rd start off a layoff. I expect that you'll see him in top form. I just wonder about that outside post and speed in getting to that turn first. He has shown in some previous races that he can close from the back as well, so there is some versatility there. But I'm afraid that if they try to go towards the lead, they could get caught wide. And if you're caught wide around 3 turns, I mean, your chances of winning are pretty close to 0. I also like Serve the King. The horse has run 5 quality starts in 7 races, making his 2nd start off a layoff. And the only other time the horse made it to a 2-race cycle without heading to the bench, came out and won the 2nd race. And I expect you'll see more here. And then I really had a hard time between number 6, Winters Back, and number 5, Fantasioso. If speed kind of holds up and they can get away with a modest pace, I like Serve the King, but I think Fantasioso is going to be coming fastest out of any of them late. And if he's close to the front, like he comes around that 3rd turn, and he's anywhere near the leaders, he's going to run right by all of them and even Arklow. So that's how I see them lining up for the United Nations, which brings us now to the marquee race of the day, the $1 million Haskell, which is also a Breeders' Cup win and you're in race for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Do you think which horse is going to make the Breeders' Cup Classic, JJ?
Oh, that's a good question. This is a very interesting race because of Following C. I think that has totally made this race such a puzzle now, and I think that the trainers are now wondering what tactics they should use. And I was just thinking, though, as an interesting side point, how interesting we have so many alumni of the Louisiana Derby here in the Haskell. I did not predict that. I discounted that prep when I was handicapping for the Kentucky Derby, and it cost me because I did not have Mandaloun. Otherwise, I would have won the Superfecta. But I think it's tough to go against a favorite, Hot Rod Charlie, obviously, after that incredible Belmont performance. But it's a very interesting move by Doug O'Neill to take the blinkers off at this juncture. And I'm wondering what the tactics are, what their plan is for this race. Doug has continued to say, we're going to gun it, we're going to run it. But are people rethinking their tactics now with Following C? Because our friend Following C is very quick, and he's an unknown. We don't know if he can route. He's mostly sprint throughout his family. He's mostly sprinter. He doesn't scream router. But Pletcher is putting him in this race. And there's a very interesting quote that he had in the Daily Racing Form when he said, "I'd be wary of going with him early." And I think that probably the only horse that if he got in a speed duel with Following C who could survive would be Hot Rod Charlie. I think the other ones would get smoked going against him. Mandaloun, I think, is probably the only other horse I could see upsetting the race unless Following C goes wire to wire. I think Mandaloun, they've said, I also wanted to point out, they said Hot Rod Charlie has looked great, by the way, in the morning since he arrived at Monmouth. But I think Mandaloun is a router. I think he got a little wary in the Pegasus, but it could have just been because he didn't have the encouragement of the whip, as Florent mentioned. I'm a little hesitant about Midnight Bourbon. I go back and forth with him because his Preakness was very strong. But ever since the Lecomte, he's finished behind Mandaloun and Hot Rod Charlie. And he's got Paco Lopez aboard, which will be a plus. And Asmussen does hit at about 20% on this layoff time period. But I think the question is going to be tactics with Following C. So in the win spot, I went with Hot Rod Charlie, and possibly Mandaloun or Following C for the upset with Midnight Bourbon underneath.
All right. And now that brings me to you, Sean. Hot Rod Charlie, I discounted him from the Louisiana Derby too. I discounted him into Louisiana. I just discounted Hot Rod Charlie altogether because I figured they shipped him out of California because he couldn't beat the California horses. And that way he had no chance to beat the California horses when they met up again in the Kentucky Derby. But none of those horses are here. So what do you like?
I like Mandaloun. The problem with Hot Rod Charlie, I did not like the fact that the blinkers were off, and I also think he's going to be behind the speed. And it seems like if he sits second or third in a race, that's kind of where he finishes. He's another one that doesn't seem to go get the leader. He just holds his spot. So I went Mandaloun. He'll be coming late. I see three horses going for the lead, Following C, Hot Rod Charlie, and Midnight Bourbon. Maybe Hot Rod Charlie backs off of that, especially without the blinkers. Mandaloun has already run at Monmouth this year and won, so I like that he's already got a race without the whip. And then Florent Giroux has raced him all 7 races, so I like that as well. Second, I did use Hot Rod Charlie. I just think he is tough to pass, and he will be there. I just don't like him on top. And then third, I went Midnight Bourbon. I do think it's a good thing that Paco's on him. It's going to be really aggressive with him. And if Following C doesn't go and Midnight Bourbon goes and beats Hot Rod Charlie to the lead, the horse is going to be dangerous up front.
Mm-hmm. I personally, I don't see Midnight Bourbon getting out to the lead. I think that you're going to see him probably third at best. Terry, do you think Midnight Bourbon's going to be on the lead first, second, third, or in the back?
No, I don't think he'd be on the lead. And I agree with Sean. I think number 3, Mandaloun, is going to be the winner. Has finished 85% of the time in the money during his career, winning 57% of those races. And he's finished 80% of the time in the money this year. He's won 40% of the races this year. He likes the distance and this track. and I think he's going to upset this apple cart. I think that the 4 Hot Rod Charlie is going to be the favorite, and I like it as my second pick. He has the highest per race earnings, and his early speed running style will help his chances. The shorter distance should also help his chances. He has the best dirt speed and is fastest among today's starters. And then I like number 1, Following C, has won 2 out of 3 career starts, finished second in the third one, and he is on the rail, which again, it's winning at a 22% clip. And then number 6, Midnight Bourbon, has finished at 75% of the time in the money, winning 25% in his career. And he has, of course, as everybody says, Paco's on, which is a pretty good jockey. So I think the way it'll happen is that Following C and Midnight Bourbon will go to the lead. Mandaloon and Hot Rod Charlie will sit behind them, and they'll try to close at the end. I think Mandaloon will outrun Hot Rod Charlie to win.
Mm-hmm. Tom, I have a feeling, and I don't know why, but I just got a feeling that you're not going to be on a short shot on top.
Yes, I'm on a short shot.
Oh my God, I can't. Yeah, you disappoint me, man. You got 40 to 1 on there, and you're going to go what, 8 to 5?
I'm afraid so.
Oh.
And I like Hot Rod Charlie on top. Yeah, I don't mind the blinkers coming off. He's been a long shot before, and he did pretty well. I think Flavien Prat continuing to ride him is very favorable. Yeah, he's the favorite, but I don't see anybody getting by him. What I do see is that one of the long shots, like Pick and Time, is going to try to gun out there. I think that's going to cook Following C. And Hot Rod Charlie, we've seen him run very well. And yes, I did pick him in the Louisiana Derby, and I think we're going to see him run a really nice race here. Midnight Bourbon was my second choice. I see him on the heels of Hot Rod Charlie, but I don't see him getting past him. But I think he's good enough to not get Mandaloon knocked out there. And Mandaloon has seen the back end of Hot Rod Charlie before. He ran a better race in the Kentucky Derby. I had him in the Kentucky Derby, and but I didn't win, but I won some money anyways. And I really think there's a lack of really good speed in this race. And I think if all Flavien has to do is, if this horse is in any kind of form, just sit there and go for the lead, sit back a little bit. He's in the 4 hole. He shouldn't have an issue, and he should be able to move along and win this race without any problem.
I see a lot of similarities between Midnight Bourbon and Hot Rod Charlie in this spot. Both of these horses tend to flatten late if they don't get the lead early, especially against better company. And right now, we don't know what type of company Following C is, but I suspect that Following C is going to be the pace setter. And if Hot Rod Charlie and Mandaloon don't get the lead against better quality, they have not won. It's not to say that they won't win, but I think the pace actually sets up for Mandaloon to come from behind. I think you're going to have Following C, Midnight Bourbon. You're going to have Hot Rod Charlie. You're going to have maybe the 5 horse, like Tom mentioned, Picking Time, jumping up towards the front. So that's half of the field, more than half of the field, competing for the lead. So if they go out and set fast fractions, I really expect Mandaloon and Hot Rod Charlie to kind of flatten towards the end of the race, opening it up for Mandaloon to pass them, because the horse has the best pedigree for the distance and the surface. I think Mandaloon runs by him. I do have Hot Rod Charlie and Following C behind them, but I do have a long shot, one of the longest shots in the board for my 4th pick, and that's Anti-Gravity. I have him beating Midnight Bourbon, maybe just getting him at the wire. It seems to me in these races, when you have 3 quality horses, you got Mandaloon, you have Hot Rod Charlie, you have Midnight Bourbon, and they're all going to be towards the front. One of them is going to tail off. I'm betting on it being Midnight Bourbon, because outside of when he doesn't get the lead, he does not win. So if the pace is hot, he goes backwards, and he's faded pretty badly in the races where he's not badly, but he's gone backwards in the races that he's lost. And Anti-Gravity always seems to be one messing up the type of horse that always messes up exotics. The long shot that comes back in. He run twice at Monmouth, once on a fast track, once on a sloppy track, and 5 consecutive quality races, and he kind of closed in both of those races. So I expect Anti-Gravity at 30-1 to clean up the superfecta, maybe hit the back end of the trifecta, which will make for a nice ticket in the Haskell Stakes. So I'm sure that if jockey Jose Ortiz was with us right now, he'd probably be cracking up. Because I made a pick before with jockey Jose Ortiz on the show, and he laughed at me. So in any case, no, we won't be laughing on Sunday when Anti-Gravity finishes out that trifecta. So JJ, it's been real good for you to come along. We appreciate your time here. If folks want to follow along with you online, where can they catch you with your social accounts?
The best place to see me is the handle is at Trifecta Box on Twitter. I post daily updates regarding all tracks, both news and picks. So please give me a follow at Trifecta Box. And I've really enjoyed being on the podcast with you guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, it definitely been fun. It'll be more fun if we pick winners, especially me.
Now, I think me and JJ are going to be together on these winners. We picked a lot of the same horses, so I think
We did.
Yeah, I think we think alike. So
You always think alike with every guest.
Yeah,
I don't know how that is, but that always matches up. I don't know how you do
at
that.
Belmont last weekend.
What's that?
You didn't go 3 for 3 at Belmont last weekend.
Tom did, but I dominated the international horse racing last week.
Well, but Super Sensational was the key.
So we will. Speaking of international racing, Tom and I will be back tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern to cover. What races are we covering in Ireland? Right?
We're going to be at the Curragh, and they've got some nice races. We've got a nice 6.5 furlong, really interesting race for 2-year-olds. We got the Paddy Power Saffron Stakes. It's a Group 2 for 3-year-olds up, and there's some decent horses in there. And then the gem of that Saturday will be the Irish Oaks. It's a Group 1, and we have Snowfall, who won by 16 lengths in the Epsom Oaks, running in this race, and which is kind of a surprise that she popped up in here. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about the Epsom Oaks was a lot of winners have come out of that race. So that's been quite a race. And then on Sunday, we've got 2 races to look at, and one of them has Order of Australia in it.
Yeah, so it's going to be a busy day for Tom and I tomorrow. Busy night for me going through these international.
Yeah, well, I got to give you something to do.
Oh, yeah, I don't have plenty to do. I'm ubiquitous today. I think the 3rd time I've been on a podcast today.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is indeed. That's why I got my hat on, because from me pulling out my hair all day. And then, of course, for those of you who don't know, but you should know by now, Horse Racing Radar. If you head on over there, you can read JJ's Q&A. At the same time, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have free horse racing contests. Tomorrow, I believe we're doing Saratoga. On Saturday, we're doing the Monmouth Park, which I will be live handicapping again 10 minutes before post for every race. My commentary on the horses, observations on the races before. And I've done a lot of homework this week on the profile of the winner for every single distance that's going to be on Saturday's card. So we'll be talking a little bit about how horses have run without the whip, so we can kind of get a sense of the race shape for whipless races at Monmouth Park. And then Sunday, it's Turf by the Surf, or whatever it is, over at Del Mar. It's another $50 handicapping contest. Absolutely free if you head on over to horseracingradar.com. And Sean, if people want to head over to our social sites, where do they go?
Facebook and Twitter, Horse Racing Radar. And before we go to, also on Horse Racing Radar, I went to Delaware last Saturday. Absolutely enjoyed it. Jockeys were great. I'll have an article up. Mostly positive on, I have a 3.5-year-old. Everything went well. Of course, exhausted, but everything you do with a 3.5-year-old, even with my girlfriend, you're exhausted. But some things that horse racing does really well. There were a couple things that we could definitely improve on for the kid experience. But let me tell you, the jockeys, I'm big into other sports too. And the athletes are not as friendly as all the jockeys were. They were absolutely great. And that's something like I did with the horse, messaging jockeys and stuff. Most jockeys will respond to you. So if you want to reach out to your favorite jockey, go ahead and you might get a response.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. They've been all the jockeys and trainers and the folks that we've come across with here at Horse Racing Radar. I mean, even JJ, we reached out to her, and like that, she got back to us and said, yes, I'm looking forward to being on the podcast. Well, certainly, we are grateful for you to be here again, JJ.
Thank you, guys. I was so happy to be here with you guys. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed you being on the show today. So,
indeed.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then, of course, everybody, like I said, Tom and I will be back tomorrow. Make sure if you like the show or any of the shows that we do, down there somewhere is a subscribe button. Make sure you hit it and hit the bell so that when we go live, you know when we're live. Between now and 1 o'clock tomorrow, when Tom and I get back together again, as always, folks, good luck at the races.